Hey guys, so I thought I would start uploading these videos that I generally do on business and economy and finance that I normally upload on my other channels, especially on the Spanish and Portuguese channels here on the Wandering Trader channel that I have. So it's going to seem kind of weird because normally I've been uploading a lot of content about travel and traveling around the world and things like that. But at the end of the day, I did upload some things about trading before. So now I'm going to start doing these every week. Basically just a recap of what happened in the markets overall. I try to stay away from the political bias because I think most of us are tired of this war zone and political stuff that even it's in sports now. So enjoy the videos. They're going to be every Sunday. They come out at about 11 or 12 or so in the afternoon. If you guys just want a brief 10, 20 minute idea of what's happening in the world, you guys can watch the videos and let me know what you think. All right, so didn't have a spectacular week, but it wasn't a horrible week either. At one point on Monday, the U.S. stock indices did hit their lowest point in nearly 7 weeks in the early afternoon. Some of those recovered because we did have some that ended up positive, others that ended up negative. Obviously, it's the same situation that we've had the last few weeks with the situation with the coronavirus, where there might be brand new lockdowns, especially in a place like Europe. Denmark, Greece, and Spain are introducing new restrictions, and the UK is considering a second national shutdown as the cases for the coronavirus increase to 6,000 per day. So that's one of the main things. The other main thing is in regards to the Congress and the U.S. not being able to agree to another stimulus to help the U.S. economy. Wednesday, the U.S. stock market plunged. It was great for me because the stock miners, silver and gold also crashed. I'll let you guys know about that. Thursday, we had the latest evidence of the slowing economic recovery from the pandemic-led recession, but there was some bright news in there that the St. Louis Fed President James Bullard, if you guys don't know, the central bank of the United States, first of all, it's the third central bank, now the first. So this is the third time that we've had this, people pretending that they can actually control what happens to the economy. He says, which is a president of one of the offices, let's call it one of the branches of the central bank in the United States, says that the U.S. economy will reach near full recovery by the end of 2020. So there's some bright news in there. For the week, the U.S. stocks are mixed. The Dow was down 1.77%, negative 4.78% for the year. The S&P 500 was 0.63% negative for the week. For the year, it's up 2.09%. And the NASDAQ, as a mosquito, is trying to come over here and get me. The NASDAQ was up 1.11%. And for the year, it's up I'm doing a video. Can't you see I'm doing a video? Could you get me after the video? For the year, it's up 21.63%. Overseas market news Monday. I mentioned about the U.S. markets hitting a 7-week low. The global stock markets as well, due to the same situations. Overall, for the week, the European markets are far lower. The SOC in Paris in France was negative 5.44%. Latin America was mostly mixed, with the index in Santiago being the biggest loser. Africa and the Middle East, it was mixed, halvesies. But most of them were positive or negative less than about 1%. And in the Far East, South Korea, KOSPI was the biggest loser at 5.86%, while the Philippines was negative 1.20%. Bitcoin for the week, not a lot of big news in regards to Bitcoin, other than the fact that, as analysts predicted for 2 or 3 or a billion years in a row, it's not going to hit 50,000 this year, although I did find a use for Bitcoin. So I want to share that. I'll do it in a separate video. If not Bitcoin, I should say cryptos. And for the week, it went down 2.23% to about 10,677.10 cents. And I was going to talk about this at the end of the video because it's something that's actually really interesting. California has mandated, let me look at my notes here. California has mandated that they're not going to be allowed to sell any more gas-powered cars after 2035. So you can still use gas-powered cars, but all the cars that are sold in the state by 2035 need to be all electric vehicles. And one of the most ironic things is, you do realize that California right now has rolling electric blackouts, right? So you're going to mandate this is how stupid bureaucrats are. They're going to mandate everybody to buy electric cars, and you won't be able to charge your car because there's rolling blackouts in the state. Maybe that's the why everybody's leaving California, left-leaning, by the way, to lower tax states like, Tennessee or North Carolina. I heard a lot of people going to Colorado as well, Texas, Florida, because of this idiocy. Anyway, I just thought that I couldn't believe the irony behind that is just, the state is on fire, which they've proved it's not because of climate change. There's a lot of people setting fires, and there's also a situation where they didn't clean the underbrush. The actual electric company in California was found at fault for not doing certain things, which, by the way, is run by the government of the California. So, and they're going to mandate everybody to get an electric car, and you're just not going to be able to charge your car anymore because there's no electricity. It's just like the iron. I'm sorry. I just think it's hilarious. In finance and banking news, the USD, the dollar rose quite a bit after 2 weeks of declines. It's part of the reason why we saw a huge crash in also the precious metals, which for me was great because I was able to buy again. Investors globally were able to seek out, let's say, the dollar as a safe haven after we had the huge stock downtrend in Asia and the major downturn of the stock markets in the U.S. as well. The Congressional Budget Office is saying that the U.S. federal debt that's held by the public is going to go up to 195% of the GDP by 2050. That's from about 98% right now at the end of 2020, and where it was at 79% by 2019. If you guys remember, I talked a lot about, and if I'll mention it again if you guys want me to, how when a country gets to 100% debt to GDP ratio, they're literally, the F word. And it starts with F, ends with uct. Other than that, we had a situation where they're also saying that the deficit in the U.S. is at about 16% of U.S. GDP, that it's going to fall over the next several years, but then it's going to rise sharply again by 2028. There was a big scandal this week with big banks being implicated in a dirty money laundering scheme, not just laundering, but also basically supporting things that they're not supposed to. They made transfers of over $2 trillion from 1999 to 2017. 2,100 leaked suspicious activity reports were that's what actually allowed the news to get out. And HSBC, Barclays, Deutsche Bank, Commerce Bank, Chase, and the Bank of New York Mellon are among the implicated. Chase also was in big news. They are poised to pay a $1 billion fine to stop the investigations resolve the investigations from U.S. officials into its trading of metal futures and Treasury securities. One of the things that I always talk to you guys about, especially in the videos, is the fact that all markets are manipulated, right? But not to the level of a market like binary options or Forex. But all markets are manipulated. You can see, the huge, what I consider Robinhood scam that now has spread to the entire industry that we really have no way of getting out of. And you can see that even in the futures market, a company like Chase, it's always, they're always trying to make money for them and leave a little less for us. If you guys want me to do a video on, in my opinion, how literally Robinhood scams us out of our money and destroyed the retail stock industry, I'll definitely do that. So just let me know there in the comments. Liberal government of Canada vows to double down on pandemic-related expenses to keep the economy recovery underway. Now that they're facing a possible second wave of the COVID-19 infections, they are saying that they want to support business activity, but it raises its challenges in regards to the overall expanding budget deficit that they have. They're also currently at 16%. They're at $256.5 billion. It's the largest gap for them since World War II. In commodities, there's been a gradual climb in oil from May until now in September, where it's expected to have a drop of about 5.5% for the month. The main thing with this is the fact that we do have some countries that are actually producing a little bit more, but the actual situation is that we haven't really had an economic recovery. So the demand for oil actually hasn't increased significantly, and that's why, even though we've had a bit of a recovery, we don't see it continuing to go up into September now because of that situation. Libya is showing signs of increasing output. Oil in exports in Iraq are also showing that they're going to have a sharp increase as well. So that obviously helps, but it's mostly with the situation with demand. U.S. crude is down for the week, 2.13% at about $40.25 for the year. It's still down 34.59%. And international crude, which they call Brent, is down 2.93%, and it's down to about $41.92. And that's down 36% from the peak of the year. Some analysts are also stating that the engaged money printing and the growing government debt, that it's not unreasonable for gold prices to get to $2,500 or $3,000 an ounce. If you listen to some guys like Peter Schiff or Jim Rickards, which have their own, pretty important credentials, they say that it can get to $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce. Now, they're saying that the economy isn't going to be able to keep up with the increasing debt load, and the raising of the taxes in the United States is very unpopular. And the situation with historical low interest rates is going to lead to inflation. This is how you're going to be able to see it. The second that you see interest rates start to go up just a little bit in the United States, that's when the proverbial shiza is going to hit the fan, because the amount of debt that we have to service, the only reason why it's working now is because we have a low interest rate. So the second that the interest rate starts to go up, the cost of servicing the debt, think of it like a credit card on the debt that you have on a credit card. If the interest rate goes up, then the monthly payment goes up, right? The interest goes up on the debt. That's when everything's going to hit the fan, and it's going to come very soon. Other than that, Wednesday, precious metals took another plunge, 1.95% for gold. Thursday was also negative. Silver dropped beautifully, went down 6.63% to 22.86. Remember, if you guys have been following me for a while, I've been talking about gold and silver for quite a while the last few years. We finally got the big pop that I was looking for, that nobody can essentially predict, but now was able to come back down. I did pretty well on some positions on Thursday, about 7K or so in profit, and then on Friday I was down about 963 or so. Other than that, the USD is surging to a 2-month high after the slowdown in global central bank purchases, and copper, which is known as Dr. Copper due to the fact that it's a bellwether for the global economic climate, was literally 3 weeks ago at a 2-year high due to increased demand. And now, all of a sudden, it's had its worst week since March, dropping 4% and dropping below $3 a pound. Overall for the week, gold is down 4.68% to $1,862. Silver is down 16.65% from $26.82 to about $22.99. Political news. Polls are showing that the former U.S. Vice President Biden is still ahead of the Trump nationally in some key swing states. Remember, I wouldn't lead too much on the actual polls themselves, because they did predict that Brexit was going to stay in the EU by a landslide. They also predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidential election by a landslide. So I wouldn't necessarily make by decision, or I wouldn't even think, and again, I don't want to get political when I do these videos. So whether you love Trump or hate Trump, love Obama or hate Obama, that's irrelevant. I'm just letting you know, whatever side you're on, don't necessarily believe the polls, whatever the polls are, due to the fact that, they seem to be skewed, especially in recent times. Trump officially announced the conservative federal judge Amy Coney Barrett Saturday to the Supreme Court nominee to be able to replace the liberal or left-leaning Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is going to be a tight race to be able to try to confirm the justice, due to the fact that we're 5.5 weeks before the election. The convicted corruption of the former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa, which is now exiled in Belgium, has been confirmed. So now so funny, right? Another corrupt leader, another leader in Latin America has been found to be corrupt. Surprise! But they essentially want to extradite him now to Ecuador to be able to meet his maker, so to speak. Lebanon's prime minister resigned on Saturday formally, after he was able to not create a cabinet to be able to go ahead and run the new government there in Lebanon. In economic news, Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits unexpectedly increased last week. The seasonally adjusted 870,000 for the week ending September 19th versus 866,000 the previous week. It was forecasted to only be 840,000, and this essentially what it states, I know a lot of you guys are new that watch these videos, essentially what it means is that the U.S. economic recovery from the pandemic is slowing as the U.S. funding, the government funding, diminishes. And due to the mismanagement Venezuela, the socialist revolution in Venezuela has basically destroyed the country. Now they have about 79% of the entire population living in poverty. So for those of you guys that believe in socialism, you guys need to go and live in some extreme poverty, see what it tastes like. In corporate news, shares of the electric truck maker Nikola Corp tumbled at 1.34% due to the whole fight between one of the short sellers of the stock and the founder, Trevor Milton. He has decided to go ahead and step down as executive chairman, and now the shares are down just 28% to $24.59. Tuesday, Microsoft shares were up 2.4%, even though they've skyrocketed 31% for 2020. They're now offering a new service called Azure Orbital, which is going to connect satellites directly to their cloud computing network. Wednesday also saw shares of Nike explode 8.98% just on Wednesday alone. They were able to report digital sales are up 82% for the year. Their stock is still up 25% in 2020 and 39% in 52 weeks. And Apple shares, I've been eyeing Apple for a possible purchase, even though I think it's going to come down a little bit more. They fell 4.19% on Wednesday, another 1.36% on Thursday. The shares are still up 46% in 2020 as UBS downgrades Apple on the expectation that the services revenue linked to the iPhone sales are going to materially decelerate. In trade news, the US and the UK had their first tariff offers during fourth round. That's a tongue twister. Fourth round of trade talks. They're now going to have their fifth round of talks that will take place in October. And in technology on Tuesday, Walmart launched a pilot program to be able to deliver coronavirus tests with a drone for people that are living within 1 mile of Walmart stores. And the delivery is going to be free, and it's going to take as little as 5 minutes. Ring, which is the cameras that everybody's using nowadays, are selling for $250. Is now offering a flying camera, which is a small drone that takes flight within your home, because we don't just need them to watch and listen to what we say outside our house. Now we can have them inside our house. Wonderful. They can automatically fly on preset flight paths in specific spots in your home and stream the video directly to your smartphone. In investment news, U.S. sales of single-family homes in August exceeded the annual rate of 1 million for the first time since 2006. New home sales are at 4.8% increase from the price of July for the first time as well, and new home sales are up 43% from the previous level last year. So we do have some good news in the economy, even though it does seem like it's slowing down the recovery. SEC is reporting that BMW is going to pay an $18 million fine for misrepresenting the amount of cars that they actually sold over 5 years from 2015 to 2019. This allowed BMW to stay on the top list of the luxury automotive companies, but they actually were misrepresenting those sales. Tesla Battery Day was this week. They promised a $25,000 full autonomy electric vehicle and also plans to reduce the cost of batteries by 50% in 3 years, but it didn't impress investors. He also stated, Elon Musk, that he's going to eventually get to 20 million produced vehicles a day. A year. 20 million vehicles a year, which is twice as many as the world's largest automaker right now, Volkswagen, actually produces. Other than that, Harley-Davidson is leaving India officially. If you guys didn't know, India is actually the biggest motorcycle market in the world. After trying to break into the market for 10 years, they have failed and have decided to go ahead and leave. They're going to still support the people who have bikes there, but they are going to officially stop doing business there completely. The size of the sovereign grant to the UK, Queen Elizabeth II, one of the royal family's major sources of income, won't be affected by the slump in profits, despite the pandemic's hit on the vast property empire that the monarch has, is a big chunk of her income, and surely the British taxpayers are going to be asked to make up the shortfall. So not only do the British taxpayers have to pay for their own coronavirus lockdowns for a virus that has over a 99% survival rate, but we're going to pay for the Queen too, because, Other than that, the UN is now saying that Iran has 10 times the amount of enriched uranium that was agreed to, 10 times more than what was originally agreed to in the agreement that was signed under the 2015 deal with previous President Obama and other leaders. This demonstrates the futility of the agreement, essentially that it's not worth the paper it's written on, because they were able to enrich all of that uranium anyway. And by the way, if you guys didn't know, that's what they make nuclear bombs out of. Other than that, Sudan doesn't want to link its removal from the U.S. terrorism list to the peace agreement, or normalization, I should say, of relations with Israel, according to the country's prime minister, even though the Trump administration reportedly says that it is going to be tied. And Poland's ruling nationalists signed a new coalition agreement to be able to go ahead and run the government, which is great. They signed a new agreement between the parties in Warsaw. In an unusual facts this week, the U.S. hits a milestone of 200 deaths, quote, somewhat attributed to the coronavirus, because remember that the majority of the people that have died of, quote unquote, the coronavirus actually died from other diseases. They just had the coronavirus when they actually died. Other than that, the amount of deaths of people with the coronavirus, not of the coronavirus, is now higher than the 5th most recent wars combined, starting with the Korean War, which is a pretty significant number. The U.S. security and investment industry donated just $10.5 million to the Trump presidential campaign and donated $51.1 million to the Biden campaign, which is 5 times more than Trump. And gold miners in Australia outback have discovered a giant meteorite crater from 100 million years ago that is 3 miles or 5 kilometers across. The meteorite that they say crashed into the earth is about 200 meters wide, or about 660 feet. And it goes to show, that with this new LiDAR equipment where they're finding structures of civilizations in the Amazon and even in Greenland, for example, that it's not as unusual for meteorites and things to come in and blast us away. The last one supposedly, we did have one in the Tunguska event. It's called in Russia. If I'm not mistaken, it was in the early 1900s. If you guys want to look that up, it literally flattened trees in the Siberian region of Russia, the size of London, the city of London. And obviously, other than that, the last one before that supposedly was the one about 12,000 years ago in the Greenland, and also possibly the area of Montana, right around there, the Scablands, that melted the ice cap in North America and also Europe. So that's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love for you to like the video. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm, since I love sharing with you guys all the experience I've had almost 20 years now in the industry, finance industry. So we'll see you next week.